Right, so far so good. This down here should be cobble. Do I do that now or later? Let's do that later. I feel like 1984 underestimates the pros, though. The idea that the pros are completely incapable of resisting, unless there's a plot twist there as well, which there could be. What if the pros are secretly in charge? Right, and then snow. How is this no one told me? Let me think about this. Yeah, I wonder about that. Like in the real world, if the government is incompetent enough, which it usually becomes incompetent if there's not enough, competition and free thinking competition, then everyone becomes like complacent and slow. And if the government is not competent enough, then it would not react sufficiently to a popular uprising. And in fact, a lot of revolutions are basically that. It's that the people in power have become so complacent and corrupt that when people rise up, they just are unable to stop the revolution, and then they get kicked out of power. Like that's how they lose power, right? Anyway, it's fiction, so I shouldn't analyze it too closely, I don't think. Just saying, like, given how much resources, how much of their resources they've spent on the oppression parts, it's difficult to understand how they have enough resources left. Like, just the apparatus of surveilling everyone, changing the past, rewriting the history, continuously rewriting the history, watching everybody. Like, all that takes time and effort and manpower. And it's an enormous cost, right, that you have to pay to maintain the oppression. Whereas if you, I mean, at one point when I was writing, I think it was whatever that book was, so it talked about how, what I was thinking. I forgot, damn it. Oh yeah. It was talking about how historically, the oppression was not as complete. And the reason historically oppression is not as complete is because it costs, like the cost of it. You have to spend a lot of manpower and resources to maintain the oppression. And the cost doesn't justify the benefits, right? Like a consensus government where people agree to something is easier to maintain than an oppression government where you're forcing people to agree on something. Because if you force them, they fight back. If they agree, they're not fighting back. And the idea that the pros are so impoverished and yet they don't resist. I'm not sure that happens in the real world. And like in our world, if the food price goes up a little bit, there's food riots. Literally riots. So, there. And then this one. Change that one there. I should make sure this still works, right? Let me just... Okay, that still works. Let me do more, just in case. Alright, looks good. So we have these tunnels now. And then inside there will be the piers. And then outside there is just the floor. How's this going? I think this is good. We do need lights out there. At least one light out here, maybe a couple. How would I do this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I can put a sea lantern here. And that will be sufficient. Okay, let's do that. One, two, three, four, five. Oh, drop that one. I mean, I guess the good news is, in our timeline, in our history, well, I was gonna say, the overly oppressive attempts at governing have failed Except now some people are trying it again. The bad ideas never die, do they? I guess the bad ideas are the lowest common denominator. And so they'll always be there. It doesn't take very much intelligence to figure out that oppression is an option. Ah, that's a shame. They always come back. Whereas the good ideas, like the difficult, complex, smart ideas, they require something more, right? And so they're less likely to exist. Right, there's always gonna be mediocrity. Whereas exceptionally good might be a rare thing. So anyway, someone's always gonna try oppression, I guess. And it's gonna mess things up, and eventually it'll fail. But somebody will always come and try again later on. That's depressing, isn't it? What do I do? I want to get rid of the snow blocks first. And then we pave the cobblestone. What happens there? I think that's the polished deep slate. This stuff in here, it's gonna be packed with snow inside the pier. Maybe we should, like, more clearly say why oppression is bad, or why oppression is suboptimal. I don't know, just in case anybody's listening and is thinking about making that same mistake again. When you force other people to do what you say, they can't do anything smarter than you, right? Because you're the one deciding what happens, and you are only as smart as you are. And so that society, is limited by your intelligence. If you're the dictator and you force people, well, to do what you say, then your society is limited by your ability. So it's inevitably it is limited. Whereas if you let people think for themselves, some people might be dumber than you, that's possible. But some people will be smarter than you. And so when you let people think for themselves, it is possible for your society to do things that are better than you can do. And so you're not constrained. The society is not constrained by the dictator's limits. But that in itself is not a guarantee of success, because just because you don't control thinking and ideas doesn't mean that other people won't necessarily have ideas that are better than yours. That goes back to the benevolent dictator thing. I mean, you might have a very competent, very benevolent dictator that is just better than the average human. And if your system is well designed, you might be able to consecutively find multiple benevolent dictators, or like genius dictators. Consecutively find multiple, and maybe your system will last several hundred years. Although if you last several hundred years, you're doing pretty well, to be honest. Because on the flip side, if you let people think for themselves, it's possible that people just do stupid things anyway, because you're letting people do what they want. And so the bad ideas are still going to be there. The idea is because ideas are competitive too, right? Different people have different ideas, and people act on their ideas. And so the people with the good ideas, in theory, should be more successful than the people with the bad ideas. And so over time, the more successful ideas will survive, and the bad ideas will lose in that competition and be eliminated. But even then, that competition might take a long time, and you might do a lot of harm before you figure out which idea is good and which idea is bad. What am I trying to say? Unless you really are the smartest person in the room, which you're probably not, you shouldn't force people to do what you say. Because if you do, you are limiting what your society can accomplish. The ideal situation is you have a lot of people and they all have different abilities. And whoever is the best at solving a particular problem will be put in charge to solve that particular problem. But it's hard to create a society where you can consistently do that. It requires everybody to work together towards that particular goal. Okay, so let me put the cobblestone down. Yeah, so basically, a dictatorship is limited by the dictator. And unless the dictator is somehow superhuman and is able to do everything all the time, like unless that, then the dictatorship will be underperforming its potential because it's not utilizing the potential of every person in the society. It's only utilizing the full potential of the dictator, and everybody else is constrained by that person's ability.